Welcome to the show, Tania Gharechedaghy.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I
yeah,
did it.
boy. That's really good. You know, I think I've told you this before. I sometimes I rely on the person who's introducing me to screw up my last name so I can make a joke about it, but you did a good job, so I won't make a joke.
You could pretend that I got it wrong.
That's okay, I'll make
How
other
do
jokes.
people, how do you say your last name?
Welcome to the EBFC show, the easier, better for construction podcast. I'm your host, Felipe Engineer Manriquez. This show is all about the business of construction.
Today's episode is sponsored by Construction Accelerator.
The design and construction industries come up with and build great things, but we also build and waste in how we do those things, in our interactions, in our contracts, in our logistics. So what does this do for our bottom line or our next project? The best firms maximize their value by removing that waste and only doing what's essential to the work, what makes them money. Construction Accelerator will train you to see the waste and give your teams the lean tools and experience to remove it immediately. All online. Construction Accelerator is made up of 3 to 9 minute videos that can be watched again and again in the field, at the office, and at home, all broken down by topic. Need to learn pool planning? We have videos on the process, how to set up a room, and how to kick off a team. Need to set up a target value delivery project? We discuss all the aspects of TVD, especially cost. Or maybe you just need to brush up on 5S. Well, we have videos on that as well. You can download and print reference materials to use on site to immediately translate watching into doing. Subscribe today at trycanow.com. Let's build an industry, not just a project.
Today's show is also sponsored by the Lean Construction Institute. LCI is working to lead the building industry in transforming its practices and culture. Its vision is to create a healthy and thriving industry that delivers outstanding project outcomes every time for everyone. Check the show notes for more information. Now, to the show.
Gharechedaghy.
Gharechedaghy. That was
Yeah, I mean, you
close.
said
That
it.
was
You said it.
not exactly as good as you. No, it's good.
Well,
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, don't let me get away with saying your name wrong,
no, I
please.
wouldn't.
I mean, my last name is Engineer. That gets messed up all the time. I think people see it and they're like, "What? Can't be."
That's
And
true.
then they'll say like Engineer. I'm like, "Really?" I was like, "Oh, I've not heard that one before." Actually, I hear that one like once a month.
I remember the day that I met you. We met in downtown San Francisco,
Yeah.
and I was signing in, and I saw your name, and I was like, "Did he think he was supposed to put what he did for a living?"
For me, it's just a coincidence that it is what I do for a living.
There you go, and me too.
I'm more like a tinkerer. Yeah, I like to tinker. I always tell people I'm closer to an engineer than a project manager any day of the week.
Really, I tell everybody the opposite. For me,
That's why I said it because I was looking at your profile and I was thinking, here we got a project management person all the way. It's all good. We definitely need PMs, 100%.
thank you.
You're in demand.
I was looking for a job recently because I'm making a transition engineer. So I got a ton of like, oh, we need civil engineers, we need, whatever. And I actually took PE off of my LinkedIn name because I was like, no, I do not want to use that account for anything
Yeah.
but, like making recommendations for other people to go get their PE. But so I'm over it. I'm over it. I'm
Right on.
engineering.
No, I was the same way. I went to school for engineering and then a friend of mine took me a construction project site and I fell in love. And I said, no way do I want to make these things that people are just going to replace every year or 2 years.
Yeah,
At least it's going to be hard to knock a building down every 25 to 50 years. I'll
that's
take
true.
that.
That's true. A little harder.
That's why I went into it. A little bit harder. Still not impossible.
I built a project that got knocked down while I feel like I was still closing the project out. So I've been there.
Wow. Was it a, I mean, that's like
It was meant to
that's
be.
my worst nightmare. Tanya, that's my worst nightmare to be building a
No, man,
job and then
go with the
knocking it
flow,
down.
dude. You're there to
Go
you're
with the
there to
flow.
produce the product. That's it.
I like that you're like, just let it go. It's going to be okay.
That's right.
Go with the flow. It's a new need, right? Needs
Mhm.
change and you got to change. The
That's
buildings have to
right.
change too.
That's right.
So Tanya,
Felipe.
the way that this show typically goes, I don't know if you've watched many of the shows. You probably haven't because you're not commuting. Have you watched them?
A few. Yeah,
Oh, a few.
I
Hello.
have. Well, I had to
That's
prepare for
awesome.
this too, you know.
I didn't prepare at all, other than when you forced my hand to give you questions that I may or may not ask.
Thank you. And I have a full page of notes on this side of my screen. You see me go like this, that's why.
Yeah. Believe it or not, people love these types of conversations. I get messages from people all over the world. Yeah, it's overwhelming that people say, like, I was having this exact issue. I heard your show. It made a difference in my work today. Thank you for having your guests on. And you heard the shows. I don't talk that much. You're going to do all the talking. Right. So you are the main star. And that's
Ready.
when I contacted you, I said, you made an impression on me. We met at the DBIA talk in preparation for that. And then we got to share a stage together. And I thought, here's a person that has they have it together, right? You do. Yeah. Your impression, you're like so well prepared. I mean, just proof positive. You're over prepared today. That just shows. so,
We'll see.
so like my first impression was accurate. Here's a person who's very well prepared and still is today. That was what, 2 years ago?
I think more.
Pandemic time. It feels like
I know.
everything was a decade ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're landing, right? You took that PE or that off your LinkedIn and now you've landed?
I've landed. Hey, I'm going to Lincoln Properties Company.
All right.
Anything from aviation or real estate. We could talk more about that.
Very cool. It's a construction show. People know what's what.
Good. That's perfect. I'm really happy to be here. It's already been fun. Just the pre talk has been fun. I won't tell you everything about me. That would be weird. But professionally, I've been an employee of San Francisco International Airport for 15 years, which is quite a long time for me, particularly because that's the entire extent of my career. I identify as an employee of SFO, or I have identified as an employee of SFO for a really long time. So as we started to talk about a moment ago, I'm making a transition out of SFO, out of San Francisco, where I was, where I grew up, and into LA. Now I'm living in LA, as evidenced by the palm tree behind me.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean, professionally, I am a design and construction professional. I've made my way through the ranks at SFO, which has been just really an incredible experience, and humbling, as well as uplifting, as well as challenging, and all the other good stuff that comes with, a long career at an organization. So I love to lead teams, like construction a lot, but I particularly really love to lead teams. So that's why I'm in this.
That's why you're here.
That's right.
That's why I invited you, because I knew.
Good.
Yeah. So Tanya, when we met, and you're probably right, it was probably more than 3 years ago, for sure. My first impression of you was that you were well organized and prepared. And what I wanted to pull from you for the audience to hear, because we don't always get that voice of what do clients really look for in teams, and like what is their expectation. And I thought it would be great if you'd share, you've had such a long career at SFO. Could you tell people that are listening, what kind of air traffic does SFO get? And this is before COVID. Let's just use before COVID.
Yeah.
So give people, just paint a picture. What kind of construction? How busy is the airport? For those that don't know.
I'm not going to say a number, because that, in my mind, I think it's like 60 million, but so I just said a number, didn't I?
There you go. It happened. Don't worry.
It's around 60
people are very
million.
kind.
And
the comments are very kind. I promise.
Okay,
Tanya.
good.
People are very kind that listen to the show.
I think SFO has to excuse me, because I've been in LA for almost a year now. I haven't been, and with everything going on, I haven't been as connected. But SFO does a ton of activity, and we have been, our capital program is like 7 billion plus, and we have been just doing everything that we can to improve the airport there ever since I've been there. And I started as a civil engineer there, and just really focusing on airfield horizontal stuff. And then I moved into project management maybe 7 years ago, 8 years ago, something like that. And ever since I've been on that side of the house, it's been nuts. And I've been working on just really amazing, complex projects with very cool teams, very interesting people, super smart people, and not just SFO staff, certainly all of the builders and designers and consultants that come and work at SFO are incredibly talented. And I consider myself really lucky to have been kind of like growing up and learning from them and with them on these projects. But yeah, SFO is an amazing place to work.
Yeah, it's busy. I remember flying internationally out of SFO and even a couple times nationally from Southern California to Northern California before I discovered other smaller airports that I can get out of faster. And I was
That's
just,
fair.
the number of people that are there any given day, it's a city in and of itself.
Yeah, and it's not a big airport. It's tiny in comparison to many. I mean, it's much smaller than LAX and, you know, all of your other big players, Atlanta and DFW and all of that. I mean, we're very small compared to those airports.
How many airports can say that you've got that beautiful ocean view coming in and out?
It is
Not
beautiful.
many. You said you started off in the runways, right?
Uh-huh.
Could you just tell me, like, for a big like jumbo jet to land, how thick of a concrete section are we talking about? Is it like a human being thick?
No, that's hilarious. No, it's not.
I always, every time I land, I'm like, how thick is this concrete? It's not 4 inches with some rebar in it. It's got to
No.
be like something substantial.
Well, you're quizzing me now, but I would say, 3 to 4 feet on the run.
Yeah. So it's like a small child. It's like a
Almost,
toddler's
yeah,
thick.
a little
Yeah.
little guy or a little gal or whatever. There's different types of sub bases and all that other stuff before you actually get to the asphalt on top. So it's not all good stuff. There's some junk in there.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to
That's
quiz me on
awesome.
engineering stuff, and
No,
I want to talk about
that's going to be the hardest.
Felipe.
That's the hardest question I'm going to ask. Now that I'm satisfying my selfish curiosity,
Okay, good.
I wanted to ask somebody that definitely knew, and no, you came through.
Okay, I'll take
thank
it.
you. No, and then what I did want to ask you was, because you said you grew up in that area, as you were a little kid growing up and eventually going to engineering school, were you thinking that aviation was where you were going to land?
No, not at all. I mean, and not aviation, not engineering, not really anything that I'm doing right now. I mean, I kind of make this comparison all the time, but like I don't have like that one hobby that I love to do. I know a lot of people like have one hobby and they're really, really passionate about it. I don't have that. So I feel actually really lucky that I was kind of put on this path, this really clear path in my career, especially at the onset. And, looking back, I was good at math. My dad is an engineer.
Check.
Yeah, check. My dad is an engineer, and he said, "Oh, you should go to engineering school." And I was like, "Okay." My mother worked for the city and county of San Francisco, so I got my foot in the door as an intern, as a college intern at SFO. And, the rest is history. It was like, I don't want to say this, but I don't think I was a very good engineer, particularly. It was fine. I wasn't like coming up with like the best designs or whatever. And luckily, airfield pavement is really not that complex, and it's kind of like defined by the FAA. It's going to be this thick, and you're going to use this radii or whatever. But it was the people and the opportunity and the just the interactions that I got to be a part of that kept me kind of motivated in the work that I was doing at SFO, and eventually like set my target on becoming a leader and leading teams and bigger teams and, more highly functioning teams and all of that.
You were already well on your way to being a team leader.
Yeah.
When we shared the stage at BBIA, and you were talking about your experiences and high collaboration at SFO, and you've got you had a cool mentor to work with at the time.
Yeah.
When you transitioned in the beginning, you went from doing calculations, sections, design, and then being in charge of teams. Did you feel like a light bulb went off, or what? Was it gradual, or was it like instantaneous? You knew.
It was instantaneous, and it was really rapid growth. So it wasn't like, okay, so let me kind of take you through the trajectory, right? Like I
Yeah,
started as an intern. I got hired immediately after college. I became a junior engineer. So I worked for a engineer, and she was my mentor for like the first 7 or 8 years of my career. And she's amazing. I mean, incredible. And every person that I worked for at SFO was like that after. I started working under her, basically drafting before I even designed. And then I started designing. And then she was like, okay, go put out the RFP for this design bid build, the contract for this design bid build project, and everything we were doing at the time was design bid build.
traditional.
Yeah. And then I was managing, they were like, 5 million, 10 million, whatever, those types of airfield projects. And it was like a 1-person show, and there was no team really, but the contractor, and then my small design team. And then I was a design manager, and then to the point where the airfield projects I was managing were $100 million, and there was a team, and I was a design manager and the construction manager and the project manager all in one. Right. Although that's not what we really called it at SFO at the time. And then I got the opportunity. They were starting up the Terminal 1 program at SFO, which is just a $2 billion monster of a program that had, huge projects, but also all of these little enabling projects, little like hundreds of millions of dollar little projects. They did an internal recruitment, and I was like, me.
Yeah.
And I got brought over to build a firehouse. There's 3 firehouses at SFO, and another building, like a campus building, which was cool. I mean, I had literally never even worked on or been on a team to work on a vertical project. And then I was managing too. Within a year, before I could even complete those projects, I got put on a terminal project. I was always getting kind of like picked up by the collar and then like thrown into the flames of something that I had never done before. And frankly, probably other organizations would have saved for more experienced staff, I guess, or more experienced than I was, I think, at the time. But SFO always just trusted me, and the trust and the support that they gave me led me to kind of be a confident and competent leader, and the project outcomes were good. So yeah, as soon as I got out of the numbers and AutoCAD, it was like, this is for me. As soon as I could start working with people to, be strategically trying to accomplish something bigger than this like very obvious specific project, which to me, that's how the airfield projects felt at the time, because, I didn't work on very highly complex airfield projects, I don't think. Mm-hmm. But as soon as I was able to do that and like start thinking more about strategy and less about the details of like the pavement section, like, yeah, this is for me. And the conversations that I got to have with people and the 50,000 phone calls I felt like I was getting every day from every stakeholder from around the airport, I'm into all of that. I loved it.
I remember you were sharing early on, like, how many people you had to interact with just on the airport side. It was like, bigger than it was like a family gathering worth of people every day, like 100 plus stakeholders. Right?
Yeah. I mean, you've probably seen Jeff do his roadshow about our project delivery methods. We have a very detailed stakeholder engagement process at SF. And, it's specific. We don't just do stakeholder engagement. I mean, you have to create a stakeholder matrix. You have specific meetings that you're going to set up. It's, it's really thorough and well thought out. And, that really allows you to see the type of interactions that you have on a day-to-day. Because on a project like the one that I was just on, the $1 billion terminal renovation, there were literally hundreds of people from around the airport that I had to answer to on a day-to-day basis. And I like that.
No, I tip my hat to you, Tania, for being so well organized and navigating so many people.
Well, it
Who are you
helps.
gonna miss?
It helps being somewhere for 15 years and knowing everybody for sure.
It probably feels like family, like you said. You still consider yourself a part.
It's hard to say goodbye to that kind of group of people that have kind of ushered me through so much of my career and my life, really.
Yeah, almost 2 decades. That's quite a lot of time.
Yeah.
Now I want to hear about this big giant job you were doing last.
Brad White, who was on that panel with us from Gensler, we're on that project together. The Monster Project, we called it the Monster Project because number one, we went through like a year and a half of just programming. We couldn't even get ourselves into design because it was like, how do we really want to do this project? Became $1 billion. I think it started like 700,000 or something, but it became $1 billion project to renovate a portion of Terminal 3, which is, many people know, United Airlines does like 60% of our traffic at SFO. So airline and an important tenant and client for us. They have a lot of say in how we build our projects, for sure. So it was a cool, really interesting dynamic for me to be working with such a heavy hitter of a stakeholder, I think, with United, in addition to, so United is like hundreds of people at United, in addition to all the people that, we work with at SFO on a day-to-day basis. So it was a good one. And unfortunately, T3OS did get put on hold for now because of COVID. Everybody's having to make decisions about how money gets at the moment.
We got to go practice and visit you in your big room, and the big room for that job is an airport hangar.
That's actually the Terminal 1 job.
That's where we were.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, we have the Terminal 3 project had an office inside of Terminal 3, and it's not nowhere near as big and fancy, but certainly, same concept. Everybody's there, stuck in the room together. Presume eventually we could have used the big room, the T1 room at some point, but it was still going on. So we had to find our own way.
I remember there were 2 project teams sharing that space, right?
Yeah.
Why would an owner want everyone to be under one roof, from your perspective?
I mean, you cannot duplicate that type of collaboration in any other way. I mean, you simply can't, right? Like the simplicity of people just being there, right? Like even if you weren't doing anything that day that was like particularly complex or amazing, it's not a milestone day or week or month or whatever, you cannot duplicate the collaboration and really the relationship building that comes out of people just being in a room together, right? Like the happenstance stuff and the conversations and the getting coffee in the same place, and even the hearing people getting coffee from across the hangar thing, where it's like, oh, I see those 2 are talking. I needed to get both of them about this thing that happened in a meeting, or I needed to get both of them about, do they want to go to happy hour with me later? It's just the relationship building and the level of collaboration is great. And, there are a lot of challenges with working in that type of environment too. And you hear it a lot with just like the open office space concept, right? There's a lot of challenges. It's hard to stay focused sometimes. It's, sometimes you want to have a private conversation and you can't. Sometimes you just, you want to eat your lunch at your desk and it's not something everybody wants to smell or whatever. So there are challenges, but I think that certainly the benefits outweigh those challenges, at least in this situation they have.
Yeah, because you're doing such large work and you're making an investment to bring everyone together versus being separate.
Yeah.
On the project you were on last, you said it was over $1 billion is what it grew to be. Inside of that Terminal 3 office space, how many people were sharing roughly in that same space, being collaborative?
We probably had at the peak 100 people.
Wow.
So the team is significantly smaller than Terminal 1.
No, that's still big. 100 people under one roof sharing a space is still gigantic.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to, so I was the airport's project manager. There were 2 of us on the project. And then, our CM team was like 20 people. And then the design build team came with all of their subcontractors. So the core subcontractors were all in the room with us. So, we were all there. We even got like an airport duty manager to live up there with us. We got someone from the electric shop eventually to live up there with us so that we could do, quick electrical shutdowns and things like that. It was great.
It's not free. And a lot of owners, they have to make an investment. I've seen like even just to have you're doing a construction project on a green field or a brown field, and the general contractor and the trades want to bring their trailer complexes and set up. And to make this dedicated space where you're bringing people under the same roof, you could be spending, up to $100,000 to create that shared space where people come together. And some owners don't think it's as valuable.
Yeah.
And you mentioned outcomes on your jobs. What kind of outcomes are you seeing on these high collaboration projects versus what you're hearing from the industry, people and other types of using other methods?
It's hard to say. T3 West, we didn't get to finish T3 West, which is, a bummer. And, I hear a lot of great things about what's happening out in the industry these days, especially with most owners and most industries moving into design builds. I think that equally, or maybe more so, I don't know.
Throw a number out there. We'll judge it.
It's not a number. I'm saying more so
Okay.
than the co-location. The progressive design build delivery method has really, really helped the collaboration on project teams, right? And I don't know. I can't even remember I don't know why we ever did design bid build. And I do know why, and some projects that's right, for some projects, some really straightforward projects, like the airfield projects that I was on when I started my career. But it's not right for most complex projects. Yeah, I think the design build, progressive design build delivery is contributing a lot to the success and the collaboration on a lot of these bigger complex projects. Certainly the big rooms and the co-location and bringing on core subcontractors early is really, really important. I mean, we get so much value in the early stages. Like I mentioned, we were in programming for T3 West, Terminal 3 West for over a year.
Right.
It was worth every minute, because when we got the right people to the table and we really, took the time to develop the cost model early and accurately, define the scope accurately, define the schedule accurately, we thought, but, things happen in the world that lead to,
change is guaranteed, Tania.
Then when we jumped into design, we could get right to it. And it eliminated a lot of the questions, and it allowed us to focus on putting out a really exceptional product.
Yeah, no, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
That collaboration it's like a loaded word, but you said you're creating an environment where people can be there, they see each other, and there's an opportunity that we can talk, versus sending, your 55th email or your 1001 phone call of the month.
That's right. Oh, emails are like the killer of collaboration.
Yes.
Killer.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of things that we can do to minimize email
Yes.
too. I saw that you had a Design Build Institute of America badge on your profile. Did you get special training for that? How did you earn
Yes, I did. So DBIA does a ton of educational courses, and because we do so much design build and progressive design build at SFO, I felt like it was worthwhile. It would be worthwhile for me to get certified, as it's becoming so prevalent in the industry. I thought it would be, a good investment for me personally, as well as for SFO at the time. But DBIA does have a ton of education courses. We, on this project for T3 West, we made it a point to make sure that people had every opportunity to grow in their careers. T3 West was meant to be a 5-year project, right? So we're all going to be sitting in a room together for 5 years, and hopefully, the person who started as an office engineer in year 1 was not going to be an office engineer in year 5. Hopefully they were going to be a, construction manager or a project manager or something. So we were always looking for ways on our team, and huge team again, to find ways to continue the individual's development on our team. And one of the ways we thought was, let's get everybody design build certified. So our design builder came and they bought a package, and IA came to the office, and we all learned together. We did like 2 or 4 or 6 days of workshops, whatever it was. It was really long. We did these workshops together as a team, and we did it in 2 sessions. So, we had like 20 or 30 people in the first session, and then 20 or 30 people in the next session. Some people weren't interested. Some people, had done it already or whatever. It wasn't appropriate for them. But we did it in 2 sessions. So you do the workshop, you submit an application, you take a test, and you're DBIA certified.
Bam. Just like that.
Just like that.
And you could use each other during the test to help pass?
No, you have to go to like one of those testing centers.
I like the idea of you doing it with your team. That's really cool.
That's the best part about it. Not only was it team building, because we could, walk into the room and be like, no offense to the education or whatever, but we could walk into the room in the morning and be like, another 6 hours of this or whatever. But it was team building, and it also showed my team that we were invested in them individually. Because frankly, at that point, it did nothing for the T3 West project. It didn't matter, right? Like, we were already doing design build. We already have processes that we're following. It really did nothing for the project, in the technical sense, but it made the staff understand that we were invested in their personal growth, and that what they were doing with us was important, and what they wanted to do next in their careers is important. And, we're paying attention to that.
And would you say that like the people that they went through those sessions were, obviously, if they'd already had it before, they didn't do it again. They're going for the first time. I mean, that's a skill that they can take with them if they work outside of this, and as long as they're not going back to traditional, if they're so lucky. And it looks like in the market, we see way more design build and progressive design build continuing to increase.
Yeah.
More and more asking for it.
Yeah.
So
they can certainly take it with them.
Some good skills.
Yeah.
Hey, you're taking those skills with you, right?
That's right.
So you mentioned this learning and taking these skills forward. And I think what it really hones in on, something that I love myself, is this idea of continuous learning. So learning for you, you're a lifelong student. I think I also saw that you got some special project manager training earlier in your career that you haven't even mentioned yet.
I did.
Would you like to, to share a little bit about what did you learn there that was different from engineering school? I was just going to say broad strokes.
Sure.
I'm not going to quiz you.
That was.
I talked to your professor, Tania, and hold on, I'm getting a call right now, Tania. Your professor's on the phone.
Oh, that's so funny. I'm kind of a continuing education weirdo. Right now, I'm taking real estate courses at the local junior college, and it doesn't. Cool. I don't think that it's necessarily it's not gonna be a 1-for-1 application to the work that I'm gonna do for sure. Well, 2 things. The effect of COVID making me stay inside was like, I got to do something to keep my brain moving. And then also I just wanted to be able to walk into my next position and know some key real estate terms at a minimum, right? So I'm doing that now, but yes, I also have a PMP, project management certification.
Me too. I'm right there with you.
I took a series of courses at San Francisco State, and which was great. The airport has, SFO has a really good reimbursement program. So, it was pretty much taken care of as long as I did my schoolwork and, the program.
Yes,
I sure did. The classes were good. I mean, they weren't like earth-shattering. I don't think that I learned something every single day in every single session that I was in, but I met a lot of people, and the people in my classes were not all in design and construction. They were in all kinds of different things like filmmaking, and one person was like an event planner, and whatever, all the different types of projects that you can do in the world. And so I went to a series of classes at San Francisco State, and then again I took a test again at one of those testing facilities. Serious.
Yeah.
And I got my PMP, and I did it at the time because when I did it was when I was still a junior engineer, or whatever level of engineering I was at that point, not junior, and I had a little bit of foresight about the opportunities to go into the project management department at SFO. And I think Ivar Satero, who's the airport director at the time, I think he sent out an email that was like, if anybody wants to do this, go do it. And I was like, I'll do it. So then when the opportunity came up, the internal recruitment at SFO came up, it was like, oh, look, I'm also doing this in the meantime. And they were like, okay, you got a little bit of a head on you. You're motivated. We'll give you a shot or whatever it was.
Just got an edge.
Yeah.
A sharp PMP edge.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And I think, for a lot of people that don't know Tania too well, she's extremely humble, and it's coming across. But I know you. I know people say really good things about you. I talked to Brad not even 2 months ago,
Awesome.
and he still fondly talked about the times that you guys got to work together.
Yeah.
And he misses you. So there you go, Brad.
Well, thank you.
Shout out from Brad White. He said, I miss you.
Well, thank you, Brad. And he, he knows that I will say the same thing about him. At the onset of the project, I think we were all like, oh my God, we get to lead this monster of a project. This is amazing. And we spent a lot of time sitting around small tables together, learning from each other and being like, I don't know what to do right now. Like, what do we think we should do as a team to get past this really hard challenge? Because not one of the four of us had ever done it. And it was like, okay, you go check with your network. I'm going to check with my network, and let's get back together and decide what to do. So, as much as I appreciate Brad saying very kind things for me, it goes both ways. He was an amazing partner on that project, and so much amazing leadership on that project and the projects that I've been on. And the team was just incredible. So
you're still humble, even the way you said it now, Tania. It's still, anyone listening, tell Tania in the comments that she is actually humble. I'm not the only one that thinks it. Not the only one. But I really like you're really passionate about learning for learning's sake, because you never know. You want to be ready. One of the people that that I was indirectly mentored by is William Edwards Deming, and he used to always tell people that you should encourage anyone in your organization to learn, because you never know where creativity is going to spark next.
That's right.
And it's just good to do, and it doesn't have to always be at a school formal. It could also be at a book. It could be a podcast. It could be a YouTube video. University of YouTube. A lot of people attend it every day.
Yes. Yeah, one thing I think that people don't think of as learning is just the day-to-day connections that you have with people, which is why when you said come be on a podcast, I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I'll do a podcast. I learn from you. Hopefully you learn something from me. But I think that people will back me up, and people see this in the way that I go about my day or the way that I interact with people. But don't rush through a conversation. Don't rush across the office. I mean, every time you have the opportunity to connect with another person is like, there's so much potential there, right? Like, how much can you learn just from, hey, how do you feel this morning or whatever? Well, any conversation that you have, no matter how short or long it is, if you give it kind of the time and cherish the potential of what could come out of it, I think, right? I could learn from you. You could learn from me. We could learn from each other. I could open up a whole new career opportunity or a new kind of stem in my brain where it's like, oh, well, actually now I want to do real estate instead of aviation, or all kinds of different potentials come out of those little connections. So like you were saying, education doesn't have to be formal. You can educate yourself from every little conversation that you have throughout a day.
My favorite is person to person.
Yeah.
That's why I do the show,
Yeah.
because the people that come on and share with me and with everybody that listens enriches all of us. The more, I mean, I'm first. I get first dibs on the enrichment.
Don't edit out anything good. That's it.
No, I won't. I tell the editing team, like, that gem better show up, or else I'll have to ask you nicely to please do a second
That's
evaluation.
totally fine. I've noticed that I've
Yeah.
said whatever a lot in this conversation. I'm not sure why I haven't really, that's not really my style. So I gotta edit out any of those.
It hasn't even hit my radar yet. So
Okay,
maybe
good.
we'll start every time you say whatever, we'll do a little
Okay,
sound
good. And you know, I
effect
think
to see.
hopefully calling myself out will help me to stop doing it.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to do it. I mean, whatever. We'll see what happens.
Thing.
So, yeah. So, no, not me.
Okay, only
It's
for
when
me.
you say
Got
it.
it.
Yeah, it's only for
Okay.
you. So, you did make a big change. I mean, you're conceivably, if you're going to, heaven forbid, retire someday, you're not even halfway through.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, I'm never going to retire. So,
Really
that's me.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
The type of work that I do, as long as there's people involved, I can't see not doing it.
Sure.
But that's
Good
just
for
me.
you.
Now, for you, I mean, you could argue that you're almost you're at a significant part of your career. Like, you're almost in the middle. If I just do the math and pencil it out, you're making a big shift going from aviation to real estate.
Yep.
How did I don't think you just woke up one day and said, no more airplanes.
No, I
So
didn't.
how did that happen?
A few contributing factors, I think. As I've mentioned, as everybody knows, I've been with SFO for a really long time. It's a great place to work. And besides it being a great place to work, it's a government job. So there are a lot of really fantastic benefits that make it, easy to stay stable for a really, really long time. The benefits are fantastic. There's a pension, there's all things that in my mind were like, why would I ever leave here? It's great. I love the work. I love the people. The benefits are good. But for the past 5-ish years, I've always had a curiosity about what happens in the offices of the people on the other side of the table from me. Like I know that a couple of times at least I said to Jeff Newmeyer, don't you think I should go sit in Turner's office for a few weeks and just see what they do? Or, go sit in the operations office to see what they do so I can better understand why we have to build a terminal this way instead of that way. So I've always had this curiosity about what else is happening out there.
Yeah.
And because of the way that my career growth happened, the challenges that I was facing on projects every day outweighed that curiosity, right? Because I couldn't even finish my first 2 ground up buildings before I got thrown into a terminal. It was like, no, I don't need to think about that. I'm doing something new and fresh and challenging here every single day. So, I had been thinking of it for a long time, but it didn't really hit. And when I was on T3 West, which was a huge project, a huge terminal project, which, for me was like, if I'm doing terminals in aviation, that's awesome. That's where I want to be. That's like the top of the line type of project that you want to be doing. It's a huge project. I have a huge team, blah, 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 blah. I've got the position. So that's when I started thinking to myself, well, what's going to happen next? Like, where are they going to pick me up and throw me next? And is that going to be 5 years from now? I wanted to make sure that I was like constantly growing, rising in my career and all of that. And that's not to say that SFO wouldn't have found a place for me. I'm sure that they would have, but it was at that point that it was really like, okay, maybe this is the right time to try something new. And also, because of all of my relationships at SFO, I felt really comfortable that if I went off and tried something new and I hated it, that hopefully they would take me back. So there's a little bit of confidence and stability left in that too.
There you go.
But so when I made the decision, I actually decided to do this in August or September of last year. And my girlfriend and I came down to LA, and we had been coming down to LA, and we bought a house that we.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. That we closed on in December of last year, and we moved down here in January. And I've been working for SFO ever since, just remotely, or I've been going back and forth. And it almost, at the beginning, we moved in January, and up until COVID started, I was driving back and forth to get to work at SFO, and I was kind of working 1 week on, 1 week off, or whatever. Ding, I got myself.
Wait, hold on.
Thank you.
There it is. Delayed.
Thank you. What was the point of all of this?
You were working 1 week off.
Working 1 week off. So I was driving back and forth, and it almost seemed like I could continue in aviation for the foreseeable future, maybe even with SFO, because I felt like I was showing them that it was probably okay for me to work remotely. And then COVID happened and everyone was working remotely, so it didn't really matter. And so I got to stay on for a really long time. I could go work at LAX, which had and has still a lot of massive projects ongoing. And I got a lot of phone calls about opportunities at LAX, which was cool. And I was happy about that. But I got some advice during that time when I was driving back and forth. And it was clearly define your goal. Like, what do you want to be doing? And that sounds really simple, but it's really, it's not. I mean,
oh, I know.
Many 6-hour drives. And I was like radio off, like, oh my God, what do I want to do in my life? And the second part of that advice was clearly define your goal, and hopefully your professional goal revolves around doing good for others. I mean, that's not really profound, but I think it might be for people in our industry, because I don't, a lot of us think that way.
I think it is really profound.
And
it can, for a lot of people, Tanya, it can just be a job.
Yeah.
And you're going way beyond.
And I didn't want that. I really didn't want that. And so doing good for other people could be providing for your family. That's fine, right? It could be doing something for society. It could be whatever it is for different people. And finally, on one of those drives, it clicked for me. And, my goal is I want to get into real estate. I want to learn as much as I can about it and in it. And I want to position myself to be a part of the solution to affordable housing. And it took, 20 of these drives for me to be like, okay, that's the end game. And no, I'm not just going to go try to build affordable housing. I want to put myself in a high enough position in the real estate industry so that I can make proper change, and really impact the way that we do affordable housing in California and maybe the United States. So that's where I'm at. It's great. I feel motivated.
Yeah. And you're in a good spot too, where it's not that affordable.
It's not affordable.
And buying a house, it's true.
It's more affordable than San Francisco, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. We grew up in the Midwest, my wife and I, and we came to California. We went from like a super spacious house with a detached garage, yard, multiple, front yard and backyard, till I think it was like a 600 or a 900 square foot apartment, and which was more expensive than what we had, and it's just like, what is it? Oh, the weather is amazing. It's like, I gotta pay for the weather that I can't control.
Yeah,
right? Worth it.
Totally.
You made a massive change. Takes courage.
It's very scary.
Yeah, you make it look easy.
I'm in the middle of it, so we'll see.
Yeah, well, you've got people to help you,
Of
right?
course.
You're not by yourself.
Of course.
You've got support. So I wanted to ask you in particular, because the leading people is not easy. What is something, and it doesn't have to deal with that, but my question to you, Tanya, is, what is something about somebody else listening or watching this, if they're frustrated in their work, you got some amazing advice on a 5.5 hour drive. What would you tell somebody who's frustrated in the work that they're doing in the design and construction industry?
Well, I think, initially frustration is, there's always going to be frustration in our work, right? It's not uncommon.
Right.
So don't think that if you're frustrated, it's the end of the world. And that's not my advice. My advice is not brush it off. Don't worry about it. That's not my advice.
I thought you were going to say whatever. And I was ready to hit it. But
you got
didn't
yourself.
go there. Yeah, I got me.
What's my advice for someone who's frustrated? Maybe it goes back to just that, right? Like, what's your goal? Why are you doing what you're doing? And it can be as simple as, some days I'm in a 6 a.m. meeting and I'm like, what am I doing in a meeting at this time of day? I should be having my coffee or taking a shower or whatever. And I think to myself, why am I here? This is frustrating that I have to do these early meetings and then I have to work till 6 p.m. also. And really, it's like, why are you doing this? And why am I in a 6 a.m. meeting? Because it's important to the project, because it's important to the success of my team, because for some reason, my brain power needs to be there, however much it is at 6 a.m. And when you answer that question for yourself, if the answer is a good one, then you say, okay, then I'll wake up tomorrow and be here at 6 a.m. again. But if the answer is, I don't really need to be here, I just listen and I don't say anything, then don't stay frustrated. Say, do I really need to be in this meeting? Can I not be in this meeting? And don't go to the meeting, right? So if it's something as little as that, I mean, I think it's isn't this a lean thing? Ask why?
It is a lean thing.
Right? So ask why, and get the answers to your questions and get to the bottom of it and make the change that you need. If it's bigger than that, again, then reevaluate what your professional goals are and determine if you want to take a different path.
Right on.
And you know what? Let me also say, hopefully you have leadership around you that can be supportive of you and you can share your frustrations with, and they can help kind of guide you, into a more positive experience of what you're doing.
That's really good.
Cool. I got the good advice at the end just there.
You did. It came in clutch. No, Tanya, thank you so much for giving me more than an hour of your time.
My pleasure.
I'm gonna keep taking it. I'm gonna ask one.
I'm
gonna take one more thing because I'm not done yet. So I wanted to ask you, now that you're moving into a new space, what kind of networking have you done to do that, or have you already started finding experts? Because I know you mentioned sitting at that it was a cluster group, right? The core team that you were part of, people that you can trust. Have you made those types of inroads in, and how did you do that for someone that's changing from one part of our industry to another?
Yeah, it's really hard. And I'm glad you're asking this question, because I think that one of the most important that we can do in our industry, especially, as we are kind of mentoring people or thinking about ways that we can grow in our professional worlds, one of the most important things that we need to do is networking. And, I talked about it a little bit about giving the time and attention to those day-to-day conversations. Networking is like that. I mean, you can't just fill up your LinkedIn bucket and think that you have a big network. You can't just go to happy hour with people, every so often and think you have a big network. You have to really sometimes coddle and develop relationships with people that sometimes you don't really see it in the moment, why you need to be connected to them, but their connection to you and your connection to them will lead to much bigger and greater things at some point in time that you don't even have any idea about, right? Like, look at me, I'm the star of a podcast today. At you.
That's right. Yeah, look at that. We have two engineers in the
That's
podcast
right.
talking with each other. The power of networks and people.
That
should give hope to all non-engineers out there that even inside of every engineer, there's a desire to connect with other human beings.
Not all, but some of us. But back to your question, networking has been incredibly hard, especially with COVID. It's horrible. I know a lot of people in aviation, and that has been very comforting to me in my choice to leave San Francisco, because I felt that I could fall back on a lot of aviation connections and resources. And I don't know anybody in real estate at all. And I don't know a lot of people in LA aside from those aviation connections and, personal friends that I have here. So it's been very hard because in my mind, when I moved down, I was going to be going to lunches and happy hours and dinners and industry events and all kinds of things and developing those relationships the same way that you and I did, and sitting on panels and doing all of the things that, we sometimes do to grow our networks. And I haven't been able to do any of those things. I mean, I haven't been able to even really develop a strong relationship with my neighbors, barely, because we can only talk from so far away, right? So it's been hard. What I've been doing is talking to everybody that's willing to talk to me, contacting everybody on my list. And, frankly, when a recruiter hits me up on LinkedIn, I talk to them and I find out that I know, 3 people away from them, and somehow that connection gets made, and then it gives me other connections, and I'm sharing with a lot of people that I'm making a change so that people know to call me and want to call me about the change. But I haven't been to a single happy hour, and that is really sad.
That is sad. If I would have known that, I would have made this a drinks mandatory.
Oh, well, I'm drinking coffee out of a kid's mug, so.
I'm drinking water out of a coffee.
Okay, that's fair.
No, I think that's really good advice, to just talk to people and to grow that network. And it is hard. Yeah. It is hard. Even me, I'm an extrovert with a capital E. You know that. And it's still hard sometimes to call because I don't want to pester people, because I can talk to people all day.
Yeah.
I used to go to conferences, Tanya, and conference starts at 8 a.m. and 4 a.m. the next day. I'm still talking to people. I remember my wife even said, "I'm never going to a conference with you because it's just not right for me." Because, I'll come back from the conference and just talk her ear off.
Yeah.
To put her to sleep. Definitely some industry challenges with getting people to still connect.
Yeah.
And to find meaningful ways to talk, because I found the number, so we had to put some math to it. I was in a Zoom happy hour, Tanya, and I was the host. And when it got to more than 10 people, it was no longer happy for anybody. It was just tile after tile after tile of face, and no one knew who should talk. It was just too awkward.
That's funny.
I'd recommend keep it. Don't go to a happy hour where there's going to be more than 10 people in a Zoom.
Okay, good advice. Thank you.
That could be rough.
Thank you. That is just one of the many things that I've learned from you today.
Yeah. I'll give you one more nugget. Here's as a homeowner, never discount the chance conversations you'll have when throwing out your garbage. When we first became homeowners, my wife and I, way back in the day, she would "All right, you're going to take out the garbage." No problem. I'd be gone for an hour. She was like, where have you been when I come back in? I was like, oh, I was talking to Sandy behind, we were talking about, she's really good into gardening, and I've always wanted to think about it. And she's telling me all these cool things about what we could do. And I'd be outside for an hour.
I think that might be a you thing.
Yeah, it would happen every time. It didn't matter. I almost felt like they were waiting for me to come out there to swoon.
Oh, that's a good sign.
But I loved it. The same here. We had Here where I live, somebody crashed our garbage can at like 3 in the
Oh,
morning. And one of my neighbors came and knocked on our door a couple weeks ago, and she said, "I'm so sorry to tell you." And so we came out there, and it looked like a garbage can had
my
exploded,
God.
right? So I'm out there with my neighbor across the way. He sees me out there, and we're masked up, socially distant, and we're picking up trash in the street. And my neighbor's like, "Isn't there somebody to call?" I'm like, "Yeah, you called me. You knocked on my door." It's like our community was in between companies for who's going to manage the community, so I knew there was nobody.
So
So I was
you,
like, what better thing to do than to keep our neighborhood looking good? And I got an excuse to talk to my neighbors
there you
more.
go. You certainly take advantage of that. So
I do. I take advantage of anybody that wants to talk to me. Tanya, when I go into the office, I plan an extra hour to 2 hours for chance conversations.
wow,
Yeah.
that's cool. I like that.
I want to give you the last words, Tanya. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to share?
I think if I go back to kind of where my passion is and why I like being in this industry and why I like the work that I do, it really revolves around not just leadership, but strategic leadership. And for me, strategic leadership means engaging a team to come up with solutions, to strategize about how to deliver a product, and then using that team to actually go deliver it. And the only way to do successful strategic leadership is to be, focusing on your people first, right? Like all of the success around projects stems from successful leadership, stems from successful dealing with people. And so I think if I was to leave the construction world with what's really important to me and what could be valuable for them, it's in your day-to-day interactions, be thoughtful about your team and your project and your constituents, or your whatever it is and whoever it is that you're leading, and think about what is really best for them. Like what is the best thing for this person right now, and do that thing. And that is going to lead to the success of your project. And that is going to lead to, being able to be strategic and count on people to trust you and you trust them, and give you innovative ideas, and, make you a great leader. So, yeah, that's my last 2 cents.
That alone does make how we do things better.
All right, I'll take it.
Thank you so much again for your time. It has been my pleasure sharing this time with you and learning from you, Tanya.
It has been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me and leading me through a masterful conversation.
You are welcome.
All right.
Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. I can't wait to see what adventures you'll have in the affordable housing arena.
Me too.
Come back on when you feel like you want to share some nuggets in that area.
Yeah,
as well.
I absolutely will.
You're always welcome back.
Okay, cool. I'll call you next week.
Sounds good.
All right.
It'll be solved that fast, right? Very special thanks to my guest. I'm Felipe Engineer Manriquez. The EBFC show is created by Felipe and produced by a passion to build easier and better. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, everybody. Let's go build.